everyone. Welcome to the Spot Real Talk. My name is Tiara.
I'm LaWanda.
I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Ron.
And today we are back to discuss the big finale of Snowfall. This is season 5, episode 10, and it was titled Fault Lines. So hang tight and we'll get started. Okay, we are back and we are here to talk about Snowfall. This was a good one. I really enjoyed this episode because it's setting the stage for that final season.
Yeah, it is.
It's gonna be good.
Yeah. And, it opened up with Franklin really thinking, he had gotten over and left the game. He's like, with Veronique in bed, and he's like, it's really over. He's making plans to get married and some more.
Mm-hmm. Let me first shout out Franklin. I tell you, of all the recaps we do, I think this guy is the best actor. I mean,
he killed it.
He killed it.
Lamson is amazing. He's amazing.
He is. I mean, absolutely. And I felt for him too. There were some great lines in this thing. The one I think I love the best, he says, well, I'm not broke. He says, I'm in debt.
Yeah. So he definitely was feeling the pain this episode because, like you said, not only is he wiped out, he's now not even able to cover his current expenses to stay afloat. So Teddy really screwed him over.
Teddy got to go. Teddy has got to go.
Yeah, he is on the number 1 slot for who can get the hands.
When you talk about somebody who is worthy of death, I think his picture is right next to
right there. There. He's so worthy.
And then to go to his higher ups, to go to his boss. And first of all, it's not even really his boss because Teddy is really an independent contractor, as they brought up.
Right.
A volunteer, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Paying him?
Right.
And he went above and beyond.
He's paying them with Franklin's money
That's
to get
what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And you know what? If Franklin knew that, if they had known that, they would have gone after this fool a long time ago.
Yeah.
If they think he's still CIA,
73 million though.
Look, I would go crazy, bonkers.
Well, that's when they're gonna find out because they got that out of Avi. Avi told Ruben that Teddy is no longer with the CIA and stuff. And Ruben is Sissy's connect, and we see that Sissy and Franklin gonna be teaming up. So that's gonna get back.
Yeah,
that's gonna get back that he's not with the CIA.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's why I said this episode really set the stage for next season because that information, like when him and Sissy talked about like burning it to the ground, I was like, oh, they about to raise hell next season.
They about to set it off. They about to set it off.
I'm glad to see that Sissy has come full circle to join him because he needs help now.
Yeah.
And let's give it to Veronique. Because, she has some past skills and I believe she called her mom.
I think she called her mom too.
Yeah. And say, hey, look, what do you do in a case like this?
Yeah, I think when she said that mom was a scammer, she probably next season going to be trying to figure out how to get that money back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And you know what? I'm going to have to apologize to Veronique because we said that she was.
We all do.
We knew she was shady.
We knew
she was a little shady, but she definitely loves Franklin.
Yeah,
and you can tell because she hasn't talked to her mother in quite some time. You can tell she said it's been some years. But the point is that she would, I don't know what the relationship is like, but the fact that she would call and try to mend that relationship to help Franklin, I was like, okay, so maybe she is all in for him.
I told you last week that Gail Bean said that, y'all been hating on Veronique, but said she's a rider for real. So she is. And then the thing is, that impressed me too, like when even after he told her, like, it's all gone. And so when they were on the balcony and they were talking, she was like, I love you. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, so she all in, whether there's no money or not.
And she asked if he needed help, that she would be there to help him.
Yeah, that was major.
No, that's real major.
Yeah.
Yeah, she seems to be, she's okay. She's a ride or die.
Yeah, I wasn't mad at Veronique.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, maybe next season we'll get to really see how savvy she is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because if she's gonna call her mother in, it's more than one way to skin a cat. And so if Teddy is playing this underhanded game, they got some tricks up their sleeves too.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was thinking about what Veronique was saying to Franklin when he was going off, like talking about how he wanted to basically kidnap and torture Reed and do all this stuff to him. She was really trying to calm him down and give him an alternative. But of course, when Franklin got on the phone with Teddy finally, he really did threaten him again. And I was like, I don't know if this helps your cause.
He was desperate. And that's the thing, going back to the acting of Damson and stuff, like you can literally see him coming undone.
Yeah.
Because when he tore up that office, and then when he called him a cracker, he was like,
yeah. But that when you see him in that desperate mode, that's when you see his youth, because you typically don't see it because he's so poised and shrewd. But that was the moment when I was like, okay, this is a kid who's in trouble, who's in over his head.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. But there's no. Oh, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I don't know. If I were in his exact shoes, even at my age, I think I would have become undone. I mean, $73 million. And like he said, I was the bigger man. I was going to walk away and let them have it. And then he discovers, and I even mentioned a couple of episodes ago that even with his properties, his properties weren't going to hold that down. And particularly since most of his properties were in those urban areas that are so torn up from his drug game. So he, when he finds out that he owes more than he actually has, even in property, he has no liquidity. And I'm telling you, if it were me, I would have been unglued.
Listen, $73. I'm pissed.
Right.
So let alone 73 million, I'm going on.
And so, Reed had Teddy, whatever. He has to be prepared for that. All of this stuff that this kid has done in the name to get this money, and then you take it and you think it's so I think he's prepared for Franklin to come after him. That's why he's setting all this stuff up for his protection, for the protection of his family, and also for him to be able to take Franklin out or to make sure he's locked up.
Right. But Franklin really tried to play it down. Like, I'll rejoin, I made a mistake when I called you last time, said I was out. I went back in and Teddy's there playing dumb. So he should have known. But
he said that.
What's that?
No, he said that. He was like, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But when Franklin got in touch with Gustavo basically told him, like, Teddy is government and the government will always win. And so I was like, dang, is this? So that was before that information came out that, Ruben had gotten those files that incriminate Teddy. Mm-hmm. So that kind of changes the game. So I don't know. I was wondering if that was like a little foreshadowing to like how the season might end, because we know the real story. The Franklin character ends up in jail. So I was like, dang, does this mean that Teddy's going to win?
Well, initially I thought Franklin would figure it out, because he did say it couldn't have been CIA taking the money, because had it been, we'd all be in handcuffs right now. Mm-hmm. So, I thought he was going to go that extra mile and think, well, wait a minute, maybe something's afoot with Teddy. But, I can understand why he couldn't go beyond missing $73 million. I mean, that's just enough to send anybody off the end. And I like what he said to Sissy, if you can't handle this, you know, I understand. You've done all you can up to this point. And I'm thinking, wow, this is a man that has another plan entirely different. And how it goes down, he doesn't care whether he lives or dies.
Well, he said the gloves are off, you know,
yes.
After that whole situation with Louis. Now we got to talk about Louis.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, her and Jerome out there honeymooning, living it up. And meanwhile, you know, Franklin is out here losing his mind. So when he finally did call her for help, she was kind of like, it's my turn. I'm up now. You know, I'm sorry for you.
It was not my problem. I was just
right.
Like,
she says, not my problem. I put a freeze on our accounts. And, you know, and when he asked her to make a call, she was just like, I'm not going to do that. I was like, wow.
Yeah, Louis was cold-blooded this episode.
Because they wouldn't be where they are had it not been for Frank.
Right.
And for her to just so coldly forget that he even exists. You know, I was thinking, well, maybe she does need a bullet between the eyes. You know, Bo helped her out, but
Now I was gonna say, it's coming.
It's coming. And you know,
she seemed surprised though that Franklin was willing to go that far. Like I was like, he's already threatened you before. Why are you so
I don't think she probably was aghast in the moment, but she wasn't that surprised because she was prepared.
Right.
And the fact that she had him there, she knew that it was a possibility.
That is true.
Because anytime the way he took out Rob and everything, Franklin was already moving like that.
Yeah.
And it was already premeditated, so she knew that it had to be a consideration. You know what I mean? It had to be a consideration. But I think, what about his reaction? You know, he seemed to be as stunned, and she took precautions and put him in the same predicament. So it's almost like it's on now. There's no turning back. And he knows what kind of position that's going to put him in with Jerome. So that means the family is split, the money is gone, the crew is torn up, it's all over. So when he says it's burned to the ground, all of his stuff is gone. So why not?
Yeah. And then the fact that, you know, Louis was telling, you know, him like, basically the only reason I'm sparing you right now is because of your relationship with Jerome. But next time, you know,
next time I see you, I'm gonna kill you. And I was like, wow. And I said, well, and he looked broken in that moment too. He looked broken. He was crying, like he just was just like, and that's why I was like, ooh.
So do you think Jerome will come around and see the true color of Louis?
He seemed kind of upset when Louis first told him like Franklin was out the game and that it was a good thing. And he seemed kind of skeptical about whether or not it was a good thing, but eventually he rolled with her and whatever she was saying. And so I wish Jerome would express his real feelings more, because I know he's not really feeling that situation and he's just rolling with her because he's in honeymoon phase. So I don't want him to keep rolling with the punches and just going along with whatever she says. I want him to stand up and have an input.
Yeah, because he's an OG. He has to know that none of that's good. Everything that happened that day spelled that somebody's gonna die.
Yeah.
Look, nobody wins when a family feuds.
That's true.
And just number two, I think that he had wanted out the game anyway. Yeah. And so to me, I mean, he didn't say it, but he looked a little envious when he heard that Franklin walked away. Like I know he probably wished, like, man, I wish we could be done. This is what I wanted to do.
Right. He never wanted to be in, and then he always wanted to be out, you know?
Yes.
And when you think about how much I forget how much they said they had. I think it was 10 million or something. But when you look back in that era, I mean, $10 million was, you couldn't spend it all, basically. You know, it was, you could definitely get out and live quite comfortably.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to see more from Jerome next season, and hopefully, you know, things work out. But I was thinking about this whole thing with Franklin, you know, after the fact, he teams up, he gets Dallas and Diamond, and I'm like, I don't know if you want them as part of your crew, especially not how he had them as the lookouts outside of his house, because I was like, they have proven to you that they can shift sides quick. So I was like, I don't know if you want them as your lookouts, but they came through in the clutch.
Yes, they did.
Looks like he hit up the club and stole cash from Louis. Then he hit up the drug spot, stole the drugs, and last stop was to go see Kane.
It was funny when Sissy walked in and one of them said, "Do you want us to check her?"
Right. What? You frisk her. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Frisk his mom.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they are, I don't know. I'm seeing a little more of them than I have in the past. So I think they might be a good stay for Franklin. Because they seem to
Berries.
Because they switched sides from being on in the streets doing stuff against Franklin and his crew. Then they joined up with Franklin and his crew. And then they were working with Louis, and now they working with Frank. So it's like they can shift with the wind. They going with whoever's the highest bidder.
You know, I keep thinking, if you do something like that, wouldn't it be wise to just leave the city? You know, you go back home, of course you have them guarding the door, but that means it's hot. You know, you really got to watch your back. It's almost like if you're going to do something like that, your next step is on your plane and you out.
Well, I think that's why he told Kane, because I think he's hoping Kane is going to take care of the problem for him.
True.
So he won't have to look over his shoulder. But I'm like, you got to know that if you're telling Kane that Louis did this, then that means that Jerome could be collateral damage in that.
Exactly.
And so Franklin said the gloves off. I wasn't sure how far he was willing to take those gloves off, because if it means your uncle gets caught up in the middle of it, is it worth it?
But your aunt pulled a gun on you. She had her assassin there. So that means he knows that Jerome is going to side with Louis.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why he said to Sissy, like, know what you're dealing with. Know who I am now. Like, if you're not prepared to deal with this, because he let her know too, like, it's on now. And that includes your brother.
I was about to say, because right now I think his attitude is, if you ain't with me, you against me.
And I think he, at this juncture, I think he believes that Jerome and Louis are, you know,
acting as one unit.
Acting as one. So he doesn't really see Jerome, you know, kind of being off on the sidelines. So it's unfortunate, but if Jerome doesn't make a move and step up and say something, it's not going to be pretty. I can't wait for season 6, because, well, I mean, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, I was going to say, I get that. That's why he told Kane, because he's hoping that Kane is going to clear the path for him. But the whole idea is that at least leave and let them do it, and you come back when everything's clear. Because now you're dealing with two people you got to watch. You got to look over your back for what's going to happen with Louis and Jerome and this rogue ex-cop that she has and Teddy.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Leon got the right idea.
Yeah, he does.
Because Leon was talking about, now that Franklin's out, I'm out too. And, you know, when he was at that little neighborhood late night chill out, he was looking at them kind of like, I was like, dang, he looked disgusted to be
but
there.
He looked like he was getting ready to renege for a minute though. Because when he looked over there, not only because dude was acting crazy, like, you know, because that one thing about Leon, now that he's a little woke, he cares about his people, and then looked over there like, am I making the right decision, leaving them in the hands of this guy? Because remember when they had the issue at the table, he was shooting up in the air and stuff, like he was reckless. Exactly. And Leon looked over there, and when Wanda came over there, it looked like for a minute that he was like, it
might have been a combination of those feelings.
Yeah.
Because at one hand, you know, he probably was feeling like, dang, this is my community. I need to stay and help them out. But on the other hand, he was kind of looking like, this ain't the life for me. Like, this is not what I want.
I mean, you talk about waking up. I mean, this man broke it down to them about the new regulations that are out. And, you know, it's now time to get out of this game, because they're only looking to just, put more of us in jail. And they couldn't distinguish, oh my God, they couldn't distinguish that from a college midterm exam. They didn't understand the difference between the two. So I can see that he feels, you know, it's
like an obligation, a sense of duty.
yeah, it's going to hell in a handbasket when he leaves.
But I also think maybe partly responsible because of your actions of going in with this, with Franklin and bringing your friends into it. Of course, at the time they were thinking about money, it was a way out. But then you look at you're complicit and it's what you started too. And I think that's part of that look too. Like now it's just out of control. It's nothing you can do to put this, it's nothing you can do to put this genie back in the bottle.
Yeah.
They got a taste of the money. And then I would also think, you know, it must be kind of a thrill too, to have that kind of power. And you've never had that kind of power. So they're almost looking like Leon stepped aside and now I get to step up and I can just do whatever I want to do.
Yeah, because the guy that was trying to take over, he looked so excited to step into the role. So I see what you're saying there. But, you know, Leon's like, my boo got her passport. I think we gonna roll.
Get out while we can.
Yep. They won't spend 5 minutes outside. I mean, like the guy walling out, shooting in the air, he's in jail. You know, they're going to grab him. You know, none of them are thinkers, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's unfortunate.
Not that one guy.
Which one?
That one guy is a thinker. The
older one.
No, the young guy.
Oh, the young guy with the bush.
Yeah. He is a thinker.
Yeah, he is. But, you know, because he's young, then no one's going to listen to him. You know,
but typically that would be the casualty. Somebody who's talented and gifted, who's never going to reach his full potential because of some craziness that somebody else is going to do.
True.
And I think that's what we're going to run into next season, that immediately whatever is going on with them trying the big get back, that's when you're going to really see things fall apart, when the police come in and start enforcing it, and then the gang wars get really bad. I think that's going to be the setup for next season, to just see everything go crazy.
And, you know, Leon wasn't the only one trying to skip town, because once Gustavo's lady let him know, like, I found this little listening device in the house, he was like, I'm not taking no chances. So he, you know, Teddy tried to meet up with him. He was like, look, it ain't happening. So the whole thing with Gustavo is interesting, because it's a couple of different things that could come about. Well, that the theories from this about like who set it up. The listening device in his house, it would seem logical that Ruben was the person that planted it there, since he talked last week about how he had, you know, the people from the wedding, he had already had eyes on Avi, and he told his I guess his co-workers or people that are in with him on it that he also had eyes on Gustavo. So it could have been Ruben that planted it, but then again, we know Teddy been listening in on stuff too. So could have been Teddy as well.
I got my buck on Teddy, you know, because he could have said we got eyes and ears on Gustavo. And I just never, you know, I can't fathom where Ruben would have had the opportunity to get into Gustavo's home and plant that bug. Whereas we know Teddy, he's just, you know, he's renowned for doing that.
What? You couldn't fathom that when we just saw him in Avi's home and getting the stuff out the safe? No, I mean, KGB.
Well, remember now, but also remember, he was in Avi's home for a specific reason, because Avi said to him, I don't keep, you know, the two documents together. And so Avi told him about where they are. So yeah, I could see him in Avi's home because he went there for a specific reason. To arbitrarily go to Gustavo and just plant a bug, it could happen, but you know, for me,
he was being watched though at the wedding party. He said that he was watching Oso and Avi. So Ruben's team was watching, but it was somebody else be ruling out. It could be the DEA. Look who busted him.
Well, it could have been Franklin who put that bug, because the two people, remember, Teddy contacted Gustavo, asked him to do something. He reneged. Franklin called Gustavo, asked him to do something. He reneged. So he reneged on Franklin. So my thought was either one of them were responsible, because somebody else had to also know where his stash was. And I think between Franklin and Teddy, they would be the most likely. Now, I could be wrong, but that's just how it played out to me.
Or he could have been followed.
Yeah,
he could have been followed.
Right. He's out of right. The DEA sure did pull up.
They pulled up on him heavy. I mean,
they pulled up on him why he was there getting his stash. So
that's why I'm because of the fact that it was DEA. I'm leaning more towards it being Teddy that set all of that up.
Yeah.
And think about where that listening device was hidden. It was in a lamp. Like it was well hidden. It wasn't in like some, just on the shelf somewhere. So I was like, somebody would have had to, first of all, get into his house and, get past the girlfriend and the kids. Kids be up and running around all the time. So it had to be somebody who's comfortable in that house. So, well, it doesn't have to be, but my line of thinking is that it was somebody who is comfortable in that setting, who Gustavo would have invited in and, maybe did something like that behind his back, and planting that device. So I'm leaning towards it being Teddy.
It could have been, because you couldn't discover it until it was broken. If it wasn't for the bad kids running around and it broke the lamp, we would have never found.
Yes.
And come through.
Teddy was already had listening devices earlier this season. Exactly. So that's why I'm leaning towards it being him. And then the fact that Gustavo got arrested by DEA, I'm like, this has Teddy written all over it.
Yeah, and because he's so controlling, he wants to know every second of every minute of what you're doing, what you're thinking. So I think if it had to be, it has to be Teddy.
And and he and Oso was supposed to be cool, but it made me think about what y'all said when we talked about that last week when Oso was saying to Teddy about nobody wins, about when you start a blood feud. And I think it was LaWanda that said something like, or was it you, T, that talked about he's maybe keeping it close to the vest, like with Oso. Like it looked like, okay, I'm filing this away to another day that you seem to be showing empathy towards Franklin.
Because I would think that Teddy is paranoid, know, and I think he had in the back of his mind his exit strategy too, because he, even before any of this happened, he had already met with the guy because he was going after the money before any of this, before Franklin threatened him and everything. So in his mind, he had an exit plan and he had a way to get back in the good graces of the agency. So I think he was setting it up and he was watching everyone and trying to figure out how he was going to tidy up his mess. Because that's the other thing they do. Once they do something like that, they have to tie up loose ends.
And I started to think he doesn't build friendships, but wait a second. His girlfriend is now missing. Remember, she was in the car waiting for him. And then Ruben comes out and he hears something behind him. He heads toward the car, and the next thing we see, Teddy is at the car, and she's no longer there. What's up with that?
Yeah, I feel like she's shady. She's not really. The way she came on to him so strong. She was definitely working him from like the sexual standpoint, and so it's like she really threw herself at him. And I'm like, she might have been interested in him in the past or whatever. I don't know. She seems to be genuine when she's expressing that to him, but I feel like she has always had other motives. And I'm like, it wouldn't shock me that, because like, remember how they met this season? Like when he was reintroduced back into her life, she had beef with him. And so I was like, it must not have ended on a good note. So I don't know what kind of vendetta she has. Maybe she's still on get back, trying to, repay him for whatever went sour in their relationship.
I don't know.
I think she's shady.
Yeah, she is. I just, she went out on one stake with him and it was okay. And I just don't understand why she would just disappear on her own volition, that is.
I mean, that's going to be a mystery, because if Ruben had her, they could have showed that. So I think that leads, it leads many pathways for the writers to go, because they can either, one, he took her, she's missing, he's holding her hostage, or we find out that she's working with them or for someone else. Or she is shady and she ran off or tried to follow Ruben and she's going to report back to Teddy. So it'd be interesting.
Or she might have got scared and bounced. That's another option.
But she definitely got a good look at Ruben.
She did.
So I was like, if she's not working with him, she definitely gonna know who he is if she ever sees him again.
Mm-hmm.
Or if he leaves her alive.
Oh yeah, that too.
I mean, like,
assuming he has her, but
because Sean told, when Avi was giving up all the tapes, he asked for assurances that he would walk away alive.
Right.
And he got that information from Avi, and he still killed him.
Yeah, well, he said it's not that he's not useful. He just said, I can't trust him.
I can't trust him. Right. And he was ready to give up Saint. He said, give up Teddy. He said, I have no loyalty to the U.S. or nothing. So,
yeah. So I was surprised a little bit about Ruben being KGB because, you think Cuban, he's out in, like a Latino area. So I'm like, it's not something that I think would be associated with Russia. So I was like,
what?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking from this perspective, not back then. Yeah. And so I was like, why would KGB and Cuba be associated? But then I got to think about the history of it, Yeah. And so then I was like, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right. So that was a little bit of a I think it was a twist in the story for me because I wasn't expecting him to introduce that aspect of his identity into the story, but now that it is, it's like KGB is kind of notorious, like they don't play no games. So I'm like, the fact that he is like, he's a formidable opponent to read.
That's what I was ready to say. That's why I'm like, as much I don't like Ruben either, but I'm like, but if he can handle Teddy, I'm here for it.
Right, because it was one thing when I was just thinking he's like local law enforcement in Cuba somewhere. It's like, that's, we kind of brushed them off. But once this KGB detail gets thrown in there, I'm like, okay, they might have a chance against Teddy.
It would make sense of why Sissy aligned with him too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know, and we were worried about that alignment too, but it's showing like Mama may know best.
Yes.
Well, it certainly comes out to be that way. I mean, but then when you think back in the, early 60s, early to mid 60s, the Cuban crisis that we had here, and Cuba and Russia were, I believe, in alliance at that particular time. So I definitely could see the tie-in. But as you said, he being a formidable adversary for Teddy is, I can see that. And, they nearly came to head in the House, and it would have been interesting to see who would come out. My bet's on Teddy, though. Teddy is just...
I don't know. Yeah, that was interesting to see them on the opposite sides of the stairs and everything. Mm-hmm. And I was like, but he got out the house without Teddy knowing who he was and stuff. So I was like, okay, Ruben ain't no slouch either.
No, he's not.
Yeah. So definitely, I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup next season. That's gonna be a good one. You guys have any predictions or any other things you want to throw out there regarding this season finale? I'm still wondering if we're gonna figure out where Peaches is. We still have not gotten, to tie up that storyline.
Yeah,
too. It's just interesting that Peaches just literally disappeared. I mean,
it fell off the face of the earth.
5-6 million, he bounced.
So they gotta reconcile that storyline. I need to know what's the deal with Peaches.
Yeah, if he is alive, he gonna catch a hot one. He ain't gonna get it. I think Kane and them are gonna take care of Louis, and like you said, T, Jerome might be an unfortunate casualty of that, with Louis, unless he comes to his senses and speaks to, Sissy and all of them. He's gonna probably be a casualty with Louis. Mm-hmm. Leon, I think the real Leon, if they're following the pattern, I think he ended up in jail, but who knows? They might, with this storyline, he's trying to exit. He might have a positive ending. Yeah. He might be the only one, he and Wanda, because Franklin might end up in the Bing if they follow the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I think Teddy joins or rejoins CIA, particularly after having after seizing such a heavy cash outlay, I think they'll have him back in. And I think that's where Franklin meets his demise in terms of going to jail, because as he tries to take out Franklin, pardon?
Teddy went back to the CIA guy and told him they might have a problem.
Right.
So I think that dude's gonna be like, nah, we don't want you back.
Right. The problem is, you know, Ruben now has all the information and stuff. He can literally kill Teddy, or he can kill him,
he's a liability.
Yeah, he's a liability. So I think Teddy is gonna be done for next season.
Yeah, I agree. I think we kind of already got our who can get the hands list together. Teddy's definitely on there, and I think we're definitely putting Louis on there.
Yep.
I don't know who else. Do you guys have any other candidates for the list? And the game ball.
I don't know if there. Well, I guess if there's a game ball, it would have to be Sissy.
Yeah.
Sissy
I agree
came
with
through.
That.
Mm-hmm. And she already had the backup plan locked and loaded.
Yeah. Yep, Sissy came through. Mm-hmm. I was going to ask y'all a question because earlier I saw online that comedian Little Duval said that he thought that Franklin wasn't smart, that he was just a pawn for the government. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I agree with that. Like, was he a pawn for the government? Yes. But I do think he was smart, because he wouldn't have gotten as far as he did if he wasn't. And there was a reason why he was selected too, because he was a smart kid. He could have done anything. So I don't know that I agree with that. And I just want to know what you guys thought.
Well, I think in the aspect of being a pawn for the government, because the government, remember, started this war on drugs and infiltrated it into our neighborhoods. And for someone like Franklin, to join in on that and, you know, harm his own people, you can't separate that. You know, that's a hand that Franklin dealt to his own people. And I would, in that regard, I would say, yes, he was a pawn.
I'd agree with that.
You know, he got paid, but look what he did to his people.
But you got to think about how it started off, though. The intentions when he first came in, they were doing powder cocaine. It wasn't crack.
No, but
when he first started. And so that's what, it wasn't yet affecting his community. It was the upper echelon, the white neighborhoods that were getting affected first, because they were the only ones that could afford the powder cocaine. Well, so I think that he, of course, is a pawn, but I think his intentions were different when he first started versus where he is now, and seeing the damage that introducing the rock cocaine caused.
You know, I thought about that, and I was like, you can be smart and naive. You can be smart and not really have the foresight to really think about what impact this is going to have, right? Mm-hmm, especially at that age, and not really. And I'm assuming he didn't know the history, that he couldn't say that in the end, this is probably what it's all about, is killing two birds with one stone, getting some money and also destroying our community.
Yeah.
Because I agree. That had to be a part of the strategy in the first place, and why they came up with the whole idea to do it. Like, you know. And
LaWanda, that makes perfect sense, except that here Leon, who is a level below Franklin, you know, he has his epiphany and he sees the destruction of his community. What would have happened if he and Franklin had joined against the destruction of the community and actually started to do something about it? And so naivety, yeah, in the beginning, but certainly.
That's what I was talking about. I was talking about in the beginning when
he was 19 when he started. So he couldn't have had the foresight.
And it was about the history, like you don't ever trust the government, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, you can be naive, but you can also not give a damn. So, and of course, so I don't know which is stronger or which is greater, or was it one or both? I don't know. But at some point, you do come into the reality and the realism of what you're doing, and you continue to do it. Mm-hmm. Which is why I have to give credit to Leon, because he saw what was going on with his neighborhood.
Well, Franklin was so far removed from it. He was so up high that he didn't get on the ground level and see. Well, he definitely seen it, but it wasn't in his face. With Leon, it happened to somebody he loved.
Well, and Franklin too, though, because it happened to Mel. And at one point in time, Franklin did love her.
Oh, definitely. And that didn't stop him at all, and he cared greatly for her. So
but that's where I think the line was drawn, where money overpowered the destruction.
Sense. Yeah, and common sense. It does. Money is the root of all evil.
But I think that was just it, right? You take a young kid who comes from a community who lacks, and then at opportunities he sees to get out, he sees the racism, and he starts to think, well, is there another way that I can have everything that I want and desire and not have to deal with that? And that's why I say it's naivety, but it's also preying upon people in their desperation, particularly for communities who have been, if you think about what happened from the point of desegregation to people are less self-sufficient than they used to be, and we're dependent upon jobs to bring us income so that we can live, then you almost don't have control over your destiny. I think he preyed on, if it wasn't Franklin, it was going to be somebody else in that situation. And it just makes it more tempting. Like, it's hard to judge that because I don't know what that level of desperation is like, but I can imagine if you can't see a way out, you take whatever way that comes.
It's almost irresistible. It's like dangling candy in front of a baby.
No, absolutely. You can't take that away out of the equation. And that's as much a part of the equation as anything else. Desperation. What will you do to survive? And so
it's a character thing. He's not absolved from it, but I do say I can see how that happened because it wasn't just him. There were other young men and women that lined up to, whether they weren't the kingpin, they were runners. You know what I mean? They were distributors. So there were a lot of people who saw that as a way out.
And that's why and I said I don't agree with what Lil Duval said. I think that both can be true because his statement was Franklin wasn't smart. He just was a pawn for the government. And that's the part I don't agree with. I agree that I think that Franklin is smart, but he also was a pawn for the government.
Franklin got a lot out of the deal. I mean, he came up, 73 million is nothing to sneeze at.
No,
he got his pilot's license, even the exposure. He's been around the world. He's learned how to set up these foreign accounts and stuff. Like he's very worldly. He's almost like the urban renaissance man. He has the best of both worlds.
And could a dumb man do that? That's what I'm saying. Could a dumb man do that? That's what I'm saying. I don't agree with his comment saying that Franklin is not smart.
No, agree.
But a person can be an intellectual and still not have wisdom.
Right.
And if he had said that, then I would agree with that.
More sense.
Right. Smart, I think he was savvy, but I also think he lacked the wisdom to know no good will come from this. Yes. I won't win, my people won't win. And at the end, if anybody goes down, it's going to be me. I will be the one that's hung out to dry.
Yes.
Now, the writers have the power of the pen and they can always decide to rewrite history and say if this situation ever comes again, because, it's not like, I say history repeats itself. Some people say it doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. And so the fact that this happens again, you can look at it, it's the same thing with them legalizing marijuana, because what you get now is not what people were smoking back then in the day. So you can look at it as it's still a mechanism of allowing people to self-medicate so that people are numb and they don't really react or resist whatever is going on, right?
And that's what your government wants. Your government wants you to be numb. It wants you to not think. It wants, because in as much as we say we're free in this country, we're really not. Because, there are a lot of mechanisms that keep us down and keep us from reaching that pinnacle that we all strive for. And part of it is dangling little carrots in front of you to make you think that it's obtainable when it actually isn't.
Yeah, and that's why I was disappointed with Louis this season, because I would think she would know better. And, we could say that Franklin wasn't wise or because some people like to equate wisdom with age. And it's true that sometimes, you know, as you get older, you do get wiser. But in Louie's case, she should know better. She is older and she seems more versed. You know, she introduced Franklin into how to run operations and stuff like that. So I would think that she would know how this comes to a head for the most part. And so, like, even involving the Little Rock people, like, I want to see that next season too, because her decisions are going to put them in danger as well.
But you know, she spoke eloquently about that at her wedding, that when you come from a person who has lack, who doesn't have self-love, who comes from the trauma that she comes from, you would think that if I can get all these material items and these trappings that look like success, then maybe that can help clean up my past. And I think the whole idea of the materialism, the thinking that you can have money and things and objects, is a way that you get people to keep the focus on the fact that you want your liberty. If you had a system that you control, then success would look like what you said it looked like. It would not look like I got to have money, or I got to have materials, or I got to have a car and a house. Your values might be different, because the values were different before this land and the globe was colonized. People were operating on a different set of values. What was success? What gave you respect in your community had nothing to do with what you had. It was who you were, what you brought to the table, what you could contribute to the community, and how you could build collectively. And so I think when we watch this, what you see is people really buying into that. And that's what the system exploited. And I think we look at this show and we're seeing it now, we get to look to see what comes from the season. If you go back, it just really sees that people really buying into that and almost selling themselves and their soul for somebody else's dream.
You know what? And now that you say that, it makes me think like back to the beginning, because if we look at Louie's journey, she's always had these traits. She's always been very self-serving, and, you know, and never knowing when to say enough is enough, because she had the affair when she had Jerome and she was sleeping around with the woman. And so it was like she always wanted her cake and to eat it too. And it's like those traits are only magnified once you get money. You know, whoever you are before the money is going to be multiplied once you have it. So if you were already a good person, you'll be an even better person. But if you was rotten, or if you had any kind of negative traits, the money's going to make it worse. And so I think we're starting to see that greed manifest in Louie, because she's always been somewhat a person that always wanted more. Enough was never enough.
And she was vindictive, and she took her out and took over the club. So she wasn't afraid to get the lady out the way to get what she wanted.
Yes. Yes.
So, you know, she has a lot of soul searching to do, if in fact she would do it. But, you know, it's your soul, and you can't control money. It will tear the best of us down. When money starts flowing in like that, you know, people change, and it's unfortunate, but it's that rooted power that there's nothing you can do with it. I mean, the only thing you can do is not get involved in the first place. But, you know, when you look at these very, very large corporations, and I mean extremely large corporations, they don't get there just by playing, you know, playing nice. They get there by all sorts of, you know, cutthroats and dirty little games. So it's not unlike anything else we know. It's just that once it hits our community, you know, it's exacerbated. It becomes a spotlight. The spotlight becomes, you know, on us. But it's not like, you know, Franklin is as much a corporate mogul as the Amazon, what's his name?
Jeff Bezos.
Yes, Bezos. He's as much a mogul as Jeff, because I can tell you right now, when Jeff broke a few government laws to do what he does with Amazon, you know, we'll go with that another issue. But, you know, when we
the real talk is getting real.
It's getting too real. I don't want to get too far into that, but, you know, go ahead.
But it's a good, I think it's a good conversation to have, because if you look at a lot of celebrities, athletes, or people who have money, capitalism says it's based on a free market system, but that's not true. Absolutely. It's really set up to where you keep the majority of the money in as few hands as possible. And there are mechanisms there that operate to control who has the money, because you could never have a situation that was totally free, because what if Malcolm X had $1 billion? So the system has to have mechanisms to control it. Right. And typically what happens is people who have a lot of money like that, who may not be politically educated, and they operate in a manner so that all the money they get, they give it right back. It's very hard for people who get money like that to maintain it, acquire wealth, and pass it down to subsequent generations. You can look at most entertainers and see who has created a legacy, who has created wealth, so that you have people who have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 generations of millionaires and billionaires. That's what when I say he was naive as a young person, to say they're not going to let you keep the money. They'll let you high roll and floss and do all of that. But there was never from day one, I think, in their minds, to allow him to keep that much money, because a person like that becomes a problem, because those resources will allow him to turn around and use everything that he learned about you against you.
Yes.
And and power begets power. When you talked about Malcolm X, they would never let Malcolm X keep that power, because he could control, just by his voice, by his command, he controlled hundreds, if not thousands of men to do his bidding. And once they realized that this is what they had amongst them, there was no way he was going to stay alive. Martin Luther King, same thing. Our fictitious brother Franklin, same thing. Mm-hmm. You cannot allow, it was not meant to be to have a Black man have that kind of power.
To have those kind of resources that they can deploy to get people to work against the system, or to work in a way that's not controlled or not on the system's agenda.
Yeah, we already knew that was coming when Teddy called Franklin out for having all of these side businesses and real estate assets and things like that. Seen this coming a mile away.
Exactly. And even he snubbed his nose at it. Teddy did, when in fact Teddy would not have done that if Franklin were white, blonde haired, blue eyed. He would expect him to go out and do and actually diversify, because that's the other thing. When you got money like that, you have to have some sort of diversification, because
he got on Harvey for the same thing. What was his name? What was the guy?
Grady.
Grady. Yeah.
Grady,
They got on him for the same thing.
Exactly.
The money.
It was really about control, because if you have a system that looks free and people think they're free and they're not free, what you cannot have is a person that allows people to see in what ways are we not free. Like, you never want somebody to lift up the curtain to see the wizard, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Teddy and people like Teddy, the true believers, the zealots, right? Mm-hmm. They operate and they enforce the system. Correct. Because somehow it works for them. Somehow they benefit, and somehow they really believe that this is the only way that it can be.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
I think this is the perfect way to wrap up the conversation. It's like kind of putting a bow on everything. We got the recap and we got some real talk. I loved it. I love this conversation. I really enjoyed this season finale. Like I said, it's setting the stage. So do you guys have any other comments before we wrap up? We might have got it all out.
I want to see Franklin walk away. I don't know if that's gonna happen.
I know. I would like to see that too. I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Okay. Well, to all the viewers out there, thank you for watching. Please make sure you drop down in the comment section and give us your thoughts on the season finale, and also your predictions for next season. Also subscribe to our channel, like the video, and make sure you click that notification bell so you get alerted every time we post. We are also on all social media platforms at The Spot Real Talk. Well, that's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. And make sure you just stick with us. We're going to continue to do our recaps. We got a lot of great shows coming back. P-Valley, Ozark. Going to start doing our Atlanta recaps. We're a little late, but better late than never, because that show definitely has some good talking points too. So if you love Atlanta, make sure you stay tuned for our recap of that show.
And the Shy comes back. The Shy
comes back. Shy. They just announced, I think yesterday, that they have a date for the 6th season. So looking forward to all of those shows. And I know you guys dropped some suggestions in the comment section too. So we're going to look into those, the other shows that you guys suggested as well. Anything else? I think we got it all. So I think we're going to call it a night. Thanks again for watching, and stay tuned for our next recap. Good night.
Night.
Yeah, what's up with it? Do it cause I love it and I stuck with it. We ain't with the subbing in the cut with it. Please none of the talks, I heard enough of it. Like, what you gonna do? Where you at? Who you with? You ain't really about this, don't talk about it. Really on the move, on the map, never slip. Keep your hands to your lips, don't talk about it. Real eyes, real lies all the time. Stand on it, if we said it, we don't walk around it. Loose lips, sink ships, red cup, blue strips, new phone, who this? No, we don't allow it. Really on go, I don't know what's a